Hello and good morning everyone, and welcome to our NetApp Flash webinar today. So we're joined here by Lawrence James from NetApp, and we also have Stuart Curry from Bytes Software Services.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Amy, for that intro. And it's just a high-level overview today of where we are as Bytes as a business. Most of you as clients of Bytes have worked with us for a number of years and understand and know of us as a software licensing organisation. In terms of who we are as a business, about Bytes, we are part of the Ultron Group. The Ultron Group is South African based with presence out of Joburg and Cape Town, with the UK presence of offices in the UK for Bytes Software Services and Bytes Security Partnerships. Bytes Software Services is the organisation that I currently work for, and we are revenue turning of about £150 million based on our core competency, which is software licensing. Okay, Amy, do you want to turn over? And as I explained, most of our businesses has been based on software asset management and software licensing. But the additional two pillars that you may have not come across is cloud services and data center infrastructure. These are relatively new and based on the demands of our customers and also the diversity of the market changing more recently. Both of these pillars are there to complement our core licensing and software capability, from working with tier 1 infrastructure vendors, mainly focusing around FlexPod technology, and looking at sort of public cloud services from the likes of people such as Microsoft, VMware, and Amazon Web Services. Do you want to knock up to the next one, Amy, please? More recently, Bytes as a business has managed to tap into our capability from South Africa. We are now an ASP partner for NetApp, where we provide first-line, second-line support services across the EMEA. We also provide remote monitoring services across a 24/7 network operations center. Ultimately, that means that we can provide support services for our customers who are running NetApp technology, wherever you may be across the EMEA, with first-line, second-line support, third-line consultants, and parts to site. This is all delivered through our contract and our organisation now to South Africa, and delivered sent into the UK market, where we're seeing a lot of enjoyment and interest for our customers. The unique piece for this, though, obviously you will get the same level of service from NetApp, is there is a cost saving to be had, and also this is backed off to NetApp for the elements for parts to site and third line consulting. Thank you, Amy. So Bytes as a business is transforming as we go forward. Certainly you know us for our licensing core capabilities there. What we're trying to offer our customers now is choice. The choice where we can start to provide on-prem private cloud solutions with reference-based architecture, also embracing hyperscales technology from the likes of Azure, vCloud Air, and Amazon Web Services, and also tapping into cloud service providers such as Telehouse and Equinix. The purpose of this, like I said, is to give people choice where they can stand up their applications or their data, be it in a private environment on-prem, or move it up to a cloud-based proposition. It's all about choice for our customers today, and that's where we're trying to aim for and strive for going forward. Thank you, Amy. So coming back to where we are today, and the purpose of today's webinar, it's to focus for private cloud on-prem, and we're seeing a lot of interest around Flash and hybrid storage, and our tier 1 partner of choice is NetApp Go-to-Market, and certainly some of the challenges our customers face today is all around ensuring your applications are currently available, minimizing data copy, improving performance for your tier 1 applications. Sometimes we're starting to see a complex of management across multiple technologies in the people's environments. Rack space is becoming ever more costly and less of, due to the amount of technology needed to drive innovation and support customer environments. And obviously there's that whole argument around costs, supporting of your estate going forward, which tends to be spiralling. So on that note, I'll pass over to Lawrence, and Lawrence will be there to talk you through NetApp's capability in this space.
So thanks, Stuart. Let me just share my screen a minute. So hopefully in a second you'll be able to see my screen. I'm Lawrence James, so I work at NetApp. I'm Product Alliance and Solutions Manager in NetApp for EMEA. And specifically, I look after sort of the Flash portfolio. And as Stuart was saying, it is becoming a massive topic amongst customers. We've been in what I would describe as the enterprise Flash market now since around about 2008. So we've seen it develop. We've got customers who have been on board since that time, so they've grown up with it. And I'll try and share some of their experiences with you as we go through. Certainly over the next 5 years, the adoption is going to change the landscape within the storage market out of all recognition. I think we'll see Flash polarizing the way that customers buy, and certainly all of my career, when I was working on the customer side, day to day, it was about performance, it was about tuning, it was about capacity planning, it was about performance management, and those topics are still very important. As Stuart was saying, competitively, I guess that you all have competitors in your own markets, and you're trying to get ahead of them, and time and performance can often play a significant part in achieving that. Certainly, if you look at trading, if you look at trading of shares, equities, microseconds in that world matter to whether you're successful in completing a trade or not. This time of the year, retail is massive. So if you can ensure that your customers have the best experience, in other words, the hourglass or the progress bar never comes up on the screen, then what happens? Well, you're likely to retain that customer and they're likely to return. If you have got the progress bar on the screen or the hourglass, then chances are their experience is going to be somewhat tainted. And we do live in an era of, how do I describe it? The latency sensitive generation, the generation that demand immediacy. So that applies a lot to the customers that we sell to within businesses, so customers within businesses and outside. So that's really what I want to aim to pop through today. So here's a quick view of the agenda, some background on Flash considerations and the applications. We'll have a look at the market, so see the way we see it developing, and again, how that polarizes things. We'll look at how NetApp are approaching the Flash market. We'll look at the two key products we have in the enterprise, and I think we are entering the sort of third generation of Flash really. For those of you who have followed it, a quick resume. As a technology, it was invented in around about 1980 by Toshiba. They found how to capture, charge, and represent a 0 or a 1 in what they call a floating gate, which is just a piece of electronics. And from there, around about 2000, you started seeing thumb drives appear, usually as marketing giveaways. I remember well, and that really was the death knell for things like the floppy disk drive. And it's gone on. It's gone on and on from there. So we'll have a look at some of that. So our two key products, all Flash FAS, we're seeing massive growth in that product line. Year on year, it's well in excess of 400% year-on-year growth in terms of units shipped. Enterprise, the EF series, we'll have a look at that and where that sits in relation to all Flash FAS. We'll have a look at some customer references. And we'll also talk just a little bit, very, very quickly, about data fabric, because this is something that I think we all need to consider as we move towards the cloud, and bursting some of our requirements into the cloud. Maybe not all. We want to keep some of the crown jewels of what we do on premise today, but there are opportunities out there to move certain aspects maybe of our operation into the cloud. And what does that mean in terms of performance, data protection, reliability, availability, all those that the RAS, reliability, availability, and serviceability? What does that mean? So that's what I intend to go through. So it is all, Flash is all about semiconductors, as I said. 1980 was when it was invented, and you'll be aware of some of the form factors. You've got them in your cameras today. Those of you who've got smartphones, it's all its memory is Flash. Didn't used to be. Used to be very small hard drives, and we'll have a look at some of that. But it's following Moore's law in terms of the capacities and densities that are now becoming available. So we have just, as an example, we've just announced the 3.8 terabyte TLC. So that's a term. So the number of bits you can represent in one cell becomes important for density. So we're at triple level cells at the moment. So 3 bits per cell, 8 numbers, just to summarize it. But it really does begin to push the data density down. Power consumption is about a quarter of a traditional hard disk drive. So there are big savings to make within the data center in terms of power and cooling. Power, cooling, and footprint within the data center become, a game changer for Flash. So it is persistent, as you might know, fast reads, power, noise, and reliability. So on the reliability front, there's been lots of FUD around the reliability. And this is something maybe we can discuss. I was with a customer, one of our earliest adopters of Flash a couple of weeks ago at NetApp Insight in Berlin. And I basically asked him the question in a birds of a feather session, so a customer-to-customer session, what was his view of reliability. This customer was Deutsche Wetterstein of the German Weather Service, so highly write-intensive, not the most friendly workload for Flash by any means, but he had done some analysis on his SSDs, and he had concluded that they were 3 times more reliable than an equivalent mechanical hard disk drive by a factor of 3. So when you read the mean time between failure, it's way out there when you compare it with disk, and that has a big bearing on IT. And managing things like life cycle and responding to incidents, which I spent a lot of my youth doing. So 3 times more reliable, but he also reckoned the lifetime of having measured these from 2007, 2008, when they first acquired them. He reckoned in terms of life, well, they were sitting at 90% on their SSDs, in excess of 90%. He reckoned that the usage rate they were seeing, which was, as I say, write intensive, 11 years. And that's what he said. So anyone that tells you that they are not reliable, that's just FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. They are in excess of a hard disk drive. So you'll see the market polarize. Performance, capacity. I fully believe that in 2 years' time, the SAS, the SAS technology, that particular generation of hard disk drives will begin to disappear. If not next year, that'll start to be eroded. So you'll have 2 generations. You'll have Flash and you'll have SATA. I think you'll have performance and capacity. And that's the way that the market will polarize. So it says that it degrades as you write to it. Yeah, well, it does. Okay, but the reliability we're seeing, and the other measures you use are things like drive writes per day. So you'll see on the manufacturers, we advertise this 3.8 terabytes, something like 1 drive write per day. So that's 1 full 3.8 touch of every single cell on that drive every day for an excess of 3 years. There's not a lot of customers that I'm seeing in the market that do that today. So hence the lifetime, hence the reliability. And ONTAP, which is one of our flagship operating systems, helps with that by coalescing things like writes and making sure you don't go through something called write amplification, which can add to the wear rate on the devices. So ONTAP complements the wear leveling, as it's called, on the drives, and it extends significantly the life of the drive, as Deutsche Wetterstein have already experienced. So it has a slower write performance, but when I say slower, I mean a standard hard disk drive where you're lucky if you can get 150, 200 IOPS out of it, for those that you're into that sort of stuff. And I was looking at, you just go and choose any SSD manufacturer, look at their enterprise class drives, and you will see that today's class of SSDs, 200,000 IOPS. It's not unusual for reads, and about half of that, a little over half of that, for writes. So about 120,000 IOPS. So where we used to do clever things by putting lots of mechanical spindles in the computer room, in the data center, we no longer see that happening. You don't need to do what they call short stroking. All of that's gone. And in fact, one customer in Israel we had went from 1,000 HDDs, 1,000 mechanical devices, down to just 24 for their prime customer-facing, revenue-generating Oracle database. So slow performance on writes, but that really today, for many of us, means nothing. We're going to get far in excess of anything we've ever seen before. Comes challenging when it fills up. Hey, what storage system doesn't get challenging when it fills up? But we aim to alleviate some of that by not causing things like write amplification to occur and not turning operations off, such as compression, deduplication. The term you want to look for is consistent performance. There is going to be a knee in the curve on any system, but look to the benchmarks to help you there. So anyway, so lots of different form factors are appearing in the market. You'll be very familiar probably with the form factor on the left there, which is what an SSD looks like. But there are many others turning up as well now. M.2, most laptops will have that, so they will have no SSDs in them as we know it in the future. M.2 is becoming popular. PCIe flash cards for accelerating reads, they were popular, and that's where we started in around about 2008, 2009, by putting those in the controller. Now, I would say that not every workload demands extreme performance. I think that's one thing we probably all aware of. And there are workloads that require it, the customer facing, the revenue generating stuff, the stuff where you absolutely have to have consistent, repeatable performance for the customers. Then you've got workloads that get busy and go quiet, I don't know, end of year accounts, end of quarter accounts, end of month accounts, where the last week it gets very busy, then first week of the next quarter, next month, goes quiet. So you have that bursty type of workloads as well. So caching can, where it's read intensive, can really help those types of workloads, and it helps you balance cost. So this is where I say that performance and capacity will be the dynamic in the storage industry to go forward. Performance being the flash tier, capacity probably the SATA tier. And there are many other sort of form factors coming through. So system class memory, where you actually put flash on the memory bus. So that's one to watch as well. And we as a vendor are watching these very, very closely, as you can imagine. So let's click through because I can go on and on. So much lower total cost of ownership. I said, in terms of its reliability, availability, and serviceability, this is what we're seeing in the market. This is what our customers are seeing. So you can probably focus a lot more on the strategic, from an IT perspective, a lot more on less so on the break fix side of things, and much more on the strategic side of things, which I think is good for all of us, and something certainly when I was working in data center I look forward to the more strategic stuff. So lower total cost of ownership, and I said power, cooling, and noise and reliability are way in excess of the mechanical. And that picture there is in fact first generation. It's either an iTouch or an iPhone. And the first generation of iTouch certainly had a mechanical hard drive in it, and Steve Jobs at the time, it was cost. So there still is a delta in the cost between flash, and a capacity point of view, and standard hard disk drive capacity. So cost per gigabyte. Yeah, there still is a delta there. Flash is still more expensive, but there are ways of, depending on the workload, depending on the compressibility, depending on the deduplication capability, you can get to there or thereabouts in terms of a cost model. There are going to be times certain workloads won't. Those workloads that don't compress well, but the cost of flash is nosediving, which is why I say that in the next 2 years it will meet and cross the line where it's equivalent cost on a capacity basis with hard disk drive SAS HDAs predominantly. So perhaps capacity, cost per unit of capacity is not the best measure. For performance, it's different. You know, you want to look at cost per IOP, and then it's a completely different equation between flash storage and mechanical storage. Flash storage will win out every time on a cost per IOP basis over HDD. So then there again, it's understanding the workloads. It really is. Some of the key events that are driving this, well, new generations of processors. The Haswell processor from Intel has got 18 cores in it now. So if you've got a server sitting there in its wait state, you know, waiting for the storage to respond, then that's pretty poor. You don't want that to happen. And the cost for licensing certain software on today's servers is incredibly high. I mean, Oracle, it can be anything up to $27,000 per core, depending on what your licensing model is. The SQL Server, it's a little better, it's about $6.5K per core, again, depending on what your licensing model is. So you want to make sure that you're not sitting at 20 or 30% of utilization on your servers because they're waiting for the storage to respond. There's a whole bunch of new databases, so from Oracle and from Microsoft this year, and virtualization is also what I would describe as a mainstream workload where Flash sits very well. Specifically VDI, so virtual desktop. So you can see there's that, what they call the I/O blender effect. You know, lots of virtual desktops going down, being funneled down a single pipe, and the storage becomes the bottleneck. Flash can certainly unlock that, and I've seen that, you know, many times now. So things like boot storms, things like you know, the response times for individual desktop users. You can change the dynamic with a relatively small amount of flash. Other areas, well, yeah, so the end of life thing. So Windows 2003 went end of life in July, so that's driving a lot of thought at the moment. You know, if you upgrade the software, you upgrade the servers. So look at, you know, think about the stack if you're going through that process today, and the same for SQL Server 2005, Oracle 11GR2, and those that may be using SAP HANA as well. So sweet spots for Flash, database, absolutely, and it's typically those customer, as I say, customer generating, customer facing, revenue generating databases. The stuff that sits behind the website that exposes all your goods and articles to the outside world, and also just don't forget about the internal customer as well. You know, from what I've seen, Flash really does enable the business, and it changes the conversation between IT and the business as well. So Flash can become an enabler, if you like, to the business, and that's well worth considering. So in summary, service more customers faster. Analytics is an interesting one, so deliver actionable results, so getting to or asking questions of data and getting results back quickly. That's also I see as a sweet spot. So databases, VDI, virtualization, analytics are probably the top three at the moment. Consistency is a word that you know I always like to sort of think about. So that's what I was aiming for when I was there. Consistency, repeatability, and predictability is the other key as well. And it does give you the opportunity to consolidate infrastructure. So where you may have short-stroked before, so you put a very thin stripe of data across a mechanical hard drive to get the performance out of them, Flash can change that dynamic out of all recognition. Well worth considering. And again, they are re-evaluation of enterprise software licenses. So let's have a look at the, you know, where we are, where NetApp sits in this market. Well, in terms of an analogy, we have two approaches to the market. The one approach is your BMW 7 Series. So just think about that car, you know, high performance, lots of creature comforts, you know, enough for 4 or 5 passengers in the back. You can set your own climate control for each area that you sit in. It's feature rich, yeah. It gives you the management capability you would want in that environment for the passengers that you're going to take. And the passengers you can equate to a workload, if you like. High performance, as it says at the bottom, high performance, versatile, and it's integrated with the requirements of the passengers you want to take with you. On the other side of the coin, you've got those customers or those people that just like motorbikes. They like extreme performance. Not too worried about, well, they're certainly not worried about the creature comforts, are they? Certainly not in this weather anyway. They just need to get there in the shortest amount of time. They don't care about things like, you know, well, they certainly don't care about, you know, having a radio or a car or heating or any of those creature comforts. It's about speed, pure speed, one passenger at a time. So this is our approach. So this is where we sit with all flash FAS. All flash FAS is the equivalent to your BMW 7 Series. It has rich data management. So for every workload, I can apply consistent data management to that workload. And I think that really matters, especially as you go towards cloud as well. So having the same consistency for data transport, data protection in the cloud, to be able to burst into the cloud and then come back. I think that becomes important, you know, so we've applied that to the flash technology, all flash FAS. So it's, you know, it gives you that rich data management, whereas the EF series is for dedicated workloads that want to see the shortest path to storage that they possibly can. But the read and write path are collapsed to the absolute minimum. Lighter touch on data management capability here, and typically you do the data management if you're using an EF series, you know, at the application layer, say within Oracle, so compression within Oracle, for instance. Whereas on the all-flash FAS, you may well do the compression in the controller, thin provisioning in the controller, deduplication in the controller, and we can have an argument about whether database is suitable for deduplication, because I'd argue they are not. And in fact, so while I'm here, we have posted 3 handouts for you, which you can pick up off one of the screens, one of which is an Oracle technical report. There's also one for VMware technical report, and there's also an ESG, which they're an analyst who will give you a flavour of what we're doing. But the technical reports will take you through, and in fact they say in terms of deduplication databases, you'll get nothing out of it. And those of you who ever worked on Oracle, you will know that every system chain, every SDN that's applied to transaction is unique, and the tail check that goes on the transaction is unique as well. So dedupe in databases gives you very little. Compression, yes. Dedupe, very little. So that's just one thing. So we have these two flagship storage operating systems, the Data ONTAP and Centricity. Data ONTAP for the all-flash FAS, and for the FAS generation, Centricity for the EF series. So rich data management, light touch data management. High performance, extreme performance. So that's where the portfolio sits today. In terms of the market, well, seeing massive growth. So you will see that the compound annual growth rate, 56% in the all-flash array market, and I think these are Gartner figures, and it stands at about $2 billion in this calendar year. And I expect that to explode given that growth rate, next year. So you can just see the adoption of flash, that's not going away. And indeed, you can see that the actual silicon chip manufacturers for flash now are making massive investments in new, what they call the fab foundries, so fabrication foundries, the place where they make the chips out in Japan. I think Hynix just announced something like 30 billion yen investment in 2 new factories. So that just tells you, you know, in terms of the level of investment that's going through. And there, again, top applications. So I'll say it again, database, virtualization, VDI, and big data will read into that analytics. All flash FAS, let's have a quick look through it. So we've pretty much, it's a new product line. We launched it back out in June. We're aiming to get the best cost. And I said, you know, there's different measures here when you start talking about flash. You know, you obviously want to look at the cost per unit of capacity, cost per gigabyte. So there you go, $5 per gigabyte raw. We can probably do a lot better than that at the moment with things like compression and for those workloads that do dedupe. And things like thin provisioning, and where we really win is things like snapshotting. So now I've got one customer that takes multiple regular snapshots, you know, of their production database so that they can run their redo should they need to get it back up to a certain point in time, should they have a failure. So snapshotting really does gives you massive savings. Snap mirroring, the ability to mirror and to vault as well. So this product line also includes something called Flash Essentials, which is a software portfolio that comes with ONTAP, which gives you that rich data management capability. So one thing I will say is that Flash, okay, it is a performance technology, but one thing that does not change, in my view, is the requirement for data management. That does not go away. The requirement for data protection, the requirement for regulation compliance does not change. So the consistency of how you apply that data management becomes particularly important. And that's what ONTAP gives you. It's uniquely situated, so you can then include an all-flash FAS in a cluster. And I'll investigate some of this later on. So you can think about, you know, different workloads you've got. You've got those that are customer-facing, revenue-generating. You may have a small number of those, a small capacity of those. Then you've got the hybrid ones, which we get busy, go quiet. Then you've got the capacity. Now, if I can have those in a cluster and I can move my workloads non-disruptively between those tiers without affecting the application, that brings real business value. Because it makes from an IT perspective, it means I can respond to the needs of the business. I can do it quickly. As workloads become more important, need higher performance, I can move them, and as they lose importance and they go down the stack, you know, I can move them again down to a capacity or a hybrid tier, but I've got that capability, but not to disrupt the application. So non-disruptive and non-disruptive operations and quality of service become important metrics. I'm not going to go through this in too much, but that's the all-flash FAS family. And you can see there, you know, it's in terms of cores, memory, non-volatile RAM, and ONTAP, as I said, has always been particularly good at managing writes. So the one thing we've done on this series is to optimize the read capability within ONTAP. The writes were always very good because it's a log structured file. It is spatially aware across whatever storage you put into it, so it ensures that writes are coalesced. They're brought together in non-volatile memory and DRAM, and then they're destaged. So it's not write in place, it's write to a new block. So you avoid write amplification. So that extends the life of the flash storage, but it also allows us to use more of what's on the drive. So Flash Essentials I spoke about, as I said, ONTAP is optimized for Flash. It has those built-in efficiencies, so should you want to use them, so as compression, dedupe, thin provisioning, all of the snapshotting technologies, snap mirroring to create mirrored copies onto different, you know, maybe a lower cost platforms. You may want to mirror from a flash to a hard disk drive to reduce cost. You can do that. We've simplified the setup, so one thing we were taken to task on was the number of screens you had to go through to get these things set up. Now it's down to sort of 3 specific screens, and that's all it is. Out of the box, it's very easy to set up, very easy. Even I could do it, I reckon. And it really is. And when you hear lots of talk and lots of FUD around software defined, but ONTAP really does define. It is doing that at the storage layer. It is defining the access to Flash. There's just another picture. I won't dwell on this too much, but I would just pull out the scale out. So scale out in Flash. So there's been lots of talk about whether you need scale out in Flash. Sure as hell, we are going to need that. By the time you look 5 years out, and 5 years is not a long way away from an IT perspective, that consistency, predictability, repeatability, in terms of the way we manage data, both on-premise, in a service provider, or if we're going to, I don't know, Amazon, for some of our workloads, I wouldn't suggest we do it for everything, but things like non-disruptive operations, quality of service, the mobility of data become very, very important. And you need that consistency. So that application integration is also key, and I think that's something that we've always done particularly well. So in other words, exposing the data management capability in the application. So Oracle's a good example, where you've got sort of snap managers specifically for Oracle. We've got them for SQL Server, Exchange, and those are just 3. There are loads of them. So you can manage those all through something called Snap Center, which exposes that capability at the business level. It's not an IT function, so the business owners or the application owners can use that capability. We also have benchmarks. Now, you may have a view on benchmarks. I know I have, but for me, they're a line in the sand. They say, okay, I understand for this particular benchmark how this is going to perform. So we submitted to Storage Performance Council. This is the SPC1 benchmark. And you can just see, in terms of consistency from that graph, you can see the consistency of where it goes out to. Let me just get rid of that. I don't want to do that. Where it goes out to. So 600,000 IOPS, you can see there, is near the curve, and it's still under 1 millisecond response. So it's microseconds of response out to that point. So when I say consistency is important for the generation that's latency sensitive, this is what I mean. Okay, so you can go to the Storage Performance Council, totally independent from NetApp, nothing to do with us. We just submit the arrays. They run the standard benchmark. So SPC1 is an OLTP benchmark. It's highly write biased, so it's not particularly flash friendly, but those are the results, and that's pretty impressive. In fact, this particular is well up there in the top 10 of systems on the market today. Not going to say too much on this because of the time, but just think about the application integration. Yeah, that piece there. We integrate with a vast range of the Microsoft products. Oracle, we developed the data management capability alongside our Oracle many years ago on the FAS side of things, and it works out of the box on all Flash FAS. SAP, similar. VMware, very close to VMware, and Citrix as well. So for Horizon, if you're using Horizon 6 or any of the Citrix products, same. The data management integrates with those products, as it does with the protection, Veeams, Commvault, Veritas of this world, TSM, and we also have OpenStack integration as well. And that's going to be interesting, as we move more towards cloud. It's applications that integrate with OpenStack. And in fact, we were the initiators of the development of the Manila side of the OpenStack, which is the NAS access within OpenStack. So you can go and look at all that API work that we've done there as well. EF series, I'm going to be very quick about this. So I said it's extreme performance, light touch data management. So you get the low latency, you get extremely high speed, the shortest path to the data possible. And you can see here, the equivalent, that little graphic down in the bottom right-hand corner. 1,000, this was the Israeli customer, 1,000 hard disk drives down to just 2 racks. So down, sorry, just down to 1 tray of 24 SSDs. for their production Oracle database, because they were short stroking onto the hard disk drives. So it gives you that performance. It's very reliable. So this is the LSI side of or enterprise storage group that we acquired something like 5 years ago now. And I've been used to using this class of storage for many years. I came through the companies such as Storage Tech, Oracle, Sun. So this class of storage is where is in its about its 10th or 12th generation. So it's not new to the market. It's well embedded today, and huge growth in this space as well. And you can just see in terms of performance, and I spoke about measuring Flash in terms of performance. From this particular class, you get massive performance, 650,000 sustained IOPS at less than 1 millisecond of latency. So I'm just seeing some messages here about the audio. So I hope you're hearing me. I'm nearly there now. So this was just there is an external reference for that. We've got a number of them around Flash. This is just one. This is the German Weather Service, so it's equivalent to our own Met Office, if you like. And this was about distributing data to the emergency services. So they were having trouble in significant weather events, and we've seen enough of those in the UK recently, getting that information out to the emergency services so they could do their job. So they put in all Flash FAS. As I said, they're in Europe. These guys are our most mature. They've been in there since the beginning using Flash, so they reduced the time it took to get the information to the emergency services by something like a factor of 10, which enables them to, work quicker, get the helicopters off the ground, get the fire services to where they need to be, all of that sort of stuff. So it has a sort of there's a real background to it rather than just weather forecasting. I'm not going to dwell on this one too much, but we think with all Flash FAS we can tick all of these boxes that our competition can't. Certainly we're multi-protocol. We have no problems with that. We scale out. We can incorporate different tiers of storage. We have that native storage efficiency for decompression built in, and not only that, for efficiency for snapshots, so capacity-free copies and usable ones, so cloning as well. So if you're in a DevOps type environment and you need to get a copy of a database to your developers, then flex cloning on Flash is an excellent way to go about that. So all Flash FAS has these advanced data services. So as I said, rich data management, EF series light touch data management. We also have on all Flash FAS the cloud integration, so that's data mobility, and I think that will be key. A key thing that everyone will be looking for. How do I move data in and out of the cloud, on-premise to my hyperscaler, to my service provider, and back again? Because I want to be able to make choices, and I've got to be able to do that, and I don't want 5 ways of doing the same thing. So we see that as key. So here's a little a few graphics. I hope you can see these, because I'm nearly there now. So this is a traditional. This is where I came from, if you like. Where budgets meant that we had different tiers of storage, different attaches. So fiber channel. We had NAS. We had. It was a jungle, really, and the budgeting never matched what the business came through to us, and we had different compute tiers as well, different networking layer. So NetApp many years ago looked at this typical type of infrastructure and the way it grew up, and began to think about, well, how do you collapse this? How do you converge this? How do you unify it? So this is where we are today, and the ability to map workloads and manage those workloads, and this gives you some examples of replication of workloads across different tiers in this one cluster of storage, to back up, to do things like manage performance issues, to rebalance, where you've got unexpected growth, to add that capacity in when a system needs upgrading. So this is the one that you always used to get me, lifecycle management. out with the old, in with the new. And that really took up most of my, Sundays doing that. But how do I do that and not disrupt the application? Because today you can't go to the business and say, I need to take a system within the machine room, within the data center out for, I don't know, 6 hours to do an upgrade. That's just not on. That's not going to cut anything. In fact, I was talking to a customer the other week who was trying to do that, and it took them 9 months just to negotiate a slot, because everything's always on, high demand. So all of these actions in a cluster under ONTAP can happen without disrupting the application at the compute layer. And that just applies to Flash just as well. So you can imagine that within this cluster, I have my different classes of storage. I may have my high performance tier, which is an all Flash FAS. I may have a hybrid tier, which is a mixture of Flash, the caching, SSDs, and hard disk drives. For those workloads that get busy, then go quiet. And then I've got my capacity tier for those workloads that they need to be online, but they're not customer facing, but the data needs to be there. I need to access it. It doesn't need screamingly fast, extreme performance. So I can create within that one customer those types of environments, and I can move workloads between the different environments should I wish to, as the business demands it, if you like. Stuff that gets more important, stuff that gets less important. I can move it non-disruptively. I can also apply quality of service to these workloads as well. So to stop the, if you like, the problem child stealing all the resources, in terms of IOPS, I have that capability as well to fair share, if that's an easy term to remember, on an IOP basis, to apply a quality of service metric to a workload. So that just gives you an idea. My final slide, well, and it really applies to what we see is how you might, as a customer, develop your data fabric. So this isn't a NetApp product or anything like that, but it's just a way of thinking for me about how I'm going to develop over the next 3-5 years. How cloud is going to affect me, and it is about that. How do I ensure that I have a consistent, predictable, repeatable experience for those workloads that require it? How am I going to protect them within this fabric? So, we will all have sort of virtual data centers in the future. I would recommend, I would recognize that an element of our operation will be in the cloud somewhere. And I need that to be consistent with what I do on premise. I don't want it to be any different. And I want to be able to make decisions, and I want to be able to move stuff. I want to be able to offer stuff up for execution. So Docker's a big topic at the moment, containerizing. Data Fabric gives you that process for thinking about how you're going to map your operation onto that type of infrastructure, if you like, that virtual infrastructure, that virtual data center that you might create, and that you want to be flexible. So that's it from me. I hope there was something in there for you. As I say, there's 3 documents out there, 3 handouts for Oracle, VMware, Horizon 6, I think it is, and there's the ESG report, which and certainly with the Oracle and the VMware reports, you'll see a lot more detail on from a technical perspective of how we have used Flash in production environments and the results that we've seen. And you can sort of use that for your own, requests for information, RFIs, for developing your thought process as well. Feel free to do that. So for me, thank you, and I think I'm handing back to Amy. So Amy, I hope you've got all of that. Hope it went well.
Thank you so much. Right, I'll just pop it back to my screen. Okay, so we're now going to open it up to any questions. So if you do have any questions, just pop those in the questions box, which is just the right-hand side of your screen. And I've got Stuart obviously here as well, and Lawrence who can answer those for you. Okay, so we've got our first question. So says, do NetApp provide flat support costs year on year?
Sorry about the dinging, that's just my phone telling me that I've run out of time. So the answer is yes. We, following the industry and what the industry is doing and leading it, so we've introduced a program called Flash Advantage, which gathers together, I guess, a lot of these initiatives. So you've got, as a customer, you've got options, and there'll be more talk about this as we go through not only the remainder of this month but into January as well. In fact, I've just published a blog on the NetApp community around this for anyone who wants to go and see it or go and read it, and there's a tweet out there as well somewhere. You can try it before you buy at no cost for 45 days, so I'm just reading this out from the piece of paper I've got in front of me. In terms of this, and I noticed there is a question here about new controller. So you can receive a new controller free of charge with NetApp 3 years after your initial purchase, and take that out to a total of 6 years of support edge premium support, and that's flat. So, when I was doing my TCO analysis and my cost-benefit analysis when I was purchasing and talking to the procurement guys, they want predictability, and I think, I wanted predictability, and I understand that customers do. So that is a flat premium support cost out to year 7. Well, it would be, wouldn't it? So yes. So you can get your free controller upgrade, and it's a flat premium support cost. What else? So we've also just, now some of you may question this, but we also have a 3 times performance guarantee. So we will guarantee that you will see a minimum, and I mean a minimum, you will see a lot more than that. And you can see that from the Storage Performance Council results, should you go there. If you don't see that, there are days of PS we can give you free of charge to help you find out where your bottlenecks exist. They're probably going to be elsewhere. When you introduce Flash, you're going to move a bottleneck somewhere else. Most of the customers I'm seeing are well in excess of 3 times performance, but there it is. There's a guarantee for your enterprise, and specifically enterprise database applications, and it's over traditional non-Flash-based disk systems. So yeah, so that's just 3. So you can get that world-class support, and I think that's a cracking one. Fixed rate for up to 7 years. I really like that one. So I hope that answers some of the questions I see coming through. Anything else, Amy?
Yeah. So Mark said, can a proof of concept be offered if I was interested in the technology?
Absolutely. You could do a try and buy. Try before you buy at no cost for 45 days. So within that 45 days, if you decide it's not for you, you're done. But certainly proof of concept. In fact, I always say this to everybody, don't believe me and what I say. Go and have a look at and I know you would anyway, I come from a technical background. I would always go out there and do a proof of concept, do a try and buy. And certainly our teams and the Bytes team can help you achieve that. And it's something I would recommend you do, because, okay, benchmarks are great. They're one specific type of workload. It's not your workload. And as I say, it gives you a line in the sand to measure against, to maybe shortlist against, but you really want to, how does it work with my work? How does it perform with my workload and in my production environment, potentially? So we have lots of tools that will help you with that as well, and find out, do the what if analysis for you and help you with it. So yes is the answer, Amy.
Thank you. A question here from David, who might need to expand a tiny bit because I'm not entirely sure where you said it. He said, why did you say writes were slower, and slower than what? I don't know if you know.
Right, okay, so it's interesting when you look at Flash as a technology and you look at the semiconductor side of things, because you have to get those, typically people aren't really that interested in in looking at that. But if you go onto any of the SSD manufacturers' websites, you will see the difference between the read IOPS and the write IOPS. Okay, writes take more cycles than reads from SSD. Okay, it's not a bit addressable architecture, and you have to clear a block down before you can rewrite it. So you have to. So if you still got within that block, you've got active pages within that block. That block they have to come out before you can mark that page and pattern it for reuse. So writes are a multi-stage, they're a multi-cycle operation. So the writes are slower, and they're typically just over half the amount of IOPS if you've got a write bias workload than a read. So understanding your read to write ratio for your production database is no bad thing. And some manufacturers are producing, we use sort of general purpose type SSDs, but you'll see some of the manufacturers produce SSDs that are for reads and some are for writes bias workloads. We use the ones in the center for general purpose, but the IOP capability over a hard disk drive way in excess. So I was looking at, I won't say the manufacturer, but I was looking at one enterprise class SSD the other day. This is just single SSD, so that what they're quoting was around 200,000 IOPS reads, around 120,000 IOPS writes. So if you look at the equivalent enterprise class hard disk drive in that category, you might be lucky to get 200 IOPS out of it. So there is that difference, that read to write difference there, but for the majority of us, that isn't, it's not going to be an issue. And looking forward, there are technologies beyond Flash that are coming, phase change, resistive RAM memory, and so I'm talking, 10 years out here. But there are new semiconductor-based technologies that are waiting in the wings. I don't expect I will see them in my commercial life, but they'll be there in the future. They don't have any, typically don't have any of this, read. They're bit addressable. They don't have this capability for write amplification and wear. But I would discount the wear issue. It's a non-issue now. But you do have that difference between reads and writes. So just go on to and I won't say the manufacturers, but just go on and find the manufacturers. Just have a look for yourself. I do quite regularly just to see what they're coming out with next. And there are different classes of Flash as well. So we started off like with SLC, so single level cells, so 1 bit per cell. Then we went to MLC, which is 2 bits per cell. And now we're at TLC, which is 3 bits per cell. But with all of that change, the dynamics around the reliability, availability, and serviceability change as well. But we've just, as I said, we've just come out with 3.8 terabyte TLC drives. We verified those drives. We know that you can get very good drive writes per day out of them. We know that we can offer a guarantee, out beyond 3 years for that class of drive. So there's lots of, there is a ton to learn around Flash if you really want to drill into it. But I would say reliability, availability, and serviceability for us are now a non-issue. In fact, we have not seen a single failure on an SSD since we introduced them in 2009. And the reason we know is because all our devices worldwide are on something called auto support, so they send the telemetry back around the health of these drives, and we've not seen a single one fail due to endurance. So I thought that was an interesting stat, and that came out of our auto support statistics. And we could collect something like 2.5 billion, 25 billion records in the database. I think it's every couple of weeks. It's a huge amount of telemetry that comes out of the systems worldwide. And that's another thing that we do, is to understand that. And that's why we can offer 7 years in terms of the the life, because we know what the projected life will be. So I've gone a bit of a long way around that one, Amy, but I hope that gives you a little bit more information.
Thanks, Lawrence. Okay, so we have a question here. So it says Ted Charles is claiming that there's inline their inline deduplication is much better than any of the other vendors are offering. Second question is that they also state they are using enterprise grade SSD, where some others use consumer grade SSD. What are you using in your boxes, and is there a big difference between them?
Well, yes, there is, and you have to go onto the manufacturer's websites to have a look at what those differences are. And anyone that's so I go through all of I've got several laptops at home. I've got teenagers, and as I said, they're the latency sensitive generation. So anything you buy down at PC World, or whatever it's called these days, Currys in the UK, that's going to be consumer grade flash. Now that's perfectly okay for your laptop, and it, as I said in my latest blog, 5 minutes, and it makes a massive difference to things like boot times. You'd expect it to. Enterprise grade. So there's a firmware, a flash translation layer that sits on the drive. Okay. It's what I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but that gives you a log structured file system which is spatially aware, which ensures that the drive wear is leveled. Yeah, so you hear this term wear leveling. It's like a little OS that sits on the drive. So there's various places where you can find out information should you want to about that. FFS is one, and there's Microsoft have produced flash translation layers. Firmware that sits on the drives, and there's many others as well. Sandforce, Indilux, chipsets. They've all got their they've all got their flash translation software. So there is a difference between consumer grade and enterprise grade, and you need to look at things like the drive writes per day. Yeah. So anything in excess of sort of 1, 2. Now you need to ask yourself the question: will I be overwriting this drive every single day for, I don't know, 3, 5 years? Will I? I would say that's probably not going to be likely. So in other words, you touch every single cell, so that would be 1 drive write per day. So look at the drive per write per day, because that'll give you an idea. I mean, some of them are now the enterprise class drives, which we use, up in excess of 25 drive writes per day. So that's a full 25 times, 25 touches for every single cell in the device every day for 3 years. Okay, it's a massive number. So you just need to do the statistics on that should you want to, and you'll learn more about it. In terms of deduplication, I think there's always going to be an element. So we've been in this game of deduplication, compression, and exposing that capability at the application layer for many, many years. And so what I would be more interested in is the consistency of how that is done, across both all flash, hybrid, capacity, in the cloud, at various points in the cloud. So that's what I'm interested in, because as I said, I don't want to create another island, and I don't want to create another method of doing the same thing. I think that's going to be interesting, that dynamic. Yeah. So I can't really comment on what T-Java is saying. I'm not going to go and say, we're better than you, you're rubbish. It's just, we see good compression rates, and it's something that I would certainly measure in any sort of proof of concept that I would do. What compression rates am I going to get out of it? For instance, in VMware, it's all about lazy zero compression. So that we do inline. Most of our compression now is inline, so it's actually on the data path as it flows through. It's not post-processed. So I can't see that there's going to be much of a difference between what we do and what they do. But I would say that efficiency is becoming more of a topic. So you can see that a lot of, from a performance perspective, a lot of the data, the deal is done, really. Go and look at Storage Performance Council. Pretty much everyone's in the same ballpark. It is around application integration and data efficiency. How you lay this stuff down, how many snapshots are you taking, how many generations of snapshots? Do they need to be read-only snapshots? Are they read-write snapshots, so clones in other words? Do you need to mirror? What type of mirroring? Is it sync mirroring? Is it async? So all of that is built into the Flash essentials that you get with the all-Flash VAS. So it's a broad topic. So, and all of that efficiency is built in. Both if you're cloning locally or remotely.
Thanks, Lawrence.
So yeah, so it goes around the houses a bit, Amy. But there we go.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So I think we're on our last question. So this one says, can Bytes offer a service to assist with determining and sizing possible solutions? Stuart might be.
I'll pick that one up, Amy. Yeah, I'll pick that one up. Thanks. So the answer to that one is straightforward. The answer is yes. In conjunction with some of our partners, we can deliver the capabilities to offer customers a free service where we will go in and understand and run some tools to collect some stats, look at change rate, etc. Performance over a 4-week cycle to capture peaks and troughs, where we can then report back to our clients based upon the information collected with a possible solution based on the stats. And I think, as Lawrence kind of highlighted there as well, ultimately that's information that we have collected, but ultimately a proof of concept will give you certainly live results better than sort of a report will do. But so we can offer a free service report to our customers, and that's something we'll happily engage with customers if they're interested.
Thanks, Stuart. So I think that's all the questions we have today. Yep, looks like it is. So Stuart, thank you, and Lawrence, thank you so much for taking the time to present, and also everyone, thank you for taking the time out of your busy work schedules to join the webinar today. So as mentioned previously, I'll send you all a link to the recording this afternoon, just in case you joined a little late or didn't have time to watch it all properly. And if you could fill out the feedback form at the end, if you'd like any more feedback, that would be great. Or call from Bytes. You can also email tellmemore@bytes.co.uk if you want to send us a question. So that's it. So thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you.
Thanks very much, Amy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.